looking crowd tonight. Let's take a moment and reflect and concentrate and think about the good place that we live in and how thankful we should be. Just a moment of personal invocation. All right, thank you very much, and we'll officially call the meeting to order tonight and say welcome to all of you. And I don't believe I see any new faces here tonight. Everybody's got their agenda information off the back table, I guess. And let's stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. Am I right? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, number 4, let's turn our attention to the agenda. Any changes or motions in regards to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move number 11 about the noise ordinance to our next meeting. And the reason is our town attorney's had time to look through a lot of the different things that have happened for the past couple of months. And specifically with regard to the noise ordinance, she's got some really great ideas for enforceability. There's just some sections in it, like I think there's a part that says something about if there's 10 people doing something, making noise. You know, she said you have to think about the police officer when they show up. What are they going to find? What are the possibilities that they could find? So what if there's 9 people? You know, that kind of thing. There's sections that, and I'll stop. Can we just move it to the next time? How's that? All right, I'll stop.
Yeah. Okay, was that a motion to approve the agenda
Yes,
with that change?
Yes.
Okay, do we need a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the amended agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Madam Clerk, it's unanimous, and please note that we are missing a commissioner tonight, and the reason is it's family illness, so we wish the family well. Where are we? Number 5, approval of minutes of the special meeting for February 16th. Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
All right, Mr. Kaiser made the motion.
A second?
Second. Well, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Madam Clerk, that's unanimous approval. And now we're on number 6, public comments on agenda items. And this is a new way of doing things. And is there anyone in the room that's not familiar with the new ordinance we have in regards to this, the way we conduct business? Just raise your hand if you're not familiar with it.
Could you just repeat the way it's gonna work? So I can
Okay.
the way it's gonna work.
Mr. Fletcher, will you
can
lecture
do
us,
that.
please?
The idea is that you would come before the meeting, identify yourself on a, as we did tonight, with a piece of paper, your address, and the topic that you're going to talk about. Typically, we're looking at 30 minutes, give or take, for the total public comment, and we're splitting it between agenda item comments early on and general comments at the end of the meeting, with a total, looking at about 30 minutes for the total package. Within that first section, we're looking at 3 minutes to make your comments, having identified what they're about on this list, and that's about it. If there are a number of people that want to talk about the same topic and have the same view, we'd like you to pick somebody to speak for you so we don't have 10 people saying the same thing. That's about it. If, and absolutely, it is not to keep anybody from talking if they're talking rationally and reasonably and you've got solid things to talk about if they do. And the board has the right to say, we'll extend the 3 minutes. If this is a good one, it'll extend it. As much as they do if it's really getting out of hand and goes crazy, we'll say we suspend it. But generally, it's 3 minutes prefer a presentation. And actually, personally, I would be happy if you've got more to say to us, send us a note, as most people have so far. I've gotten 2-3-page memos, very helpful to understanding what your position is. If you've got a serious position, you can probably get it said in 3 minutes. If we had a lot of people, we might have to make it 2 minutes to get it done in a meeting at night, but there's no, we're just trying to keep it rational and reasonable.
The time to sign up is at what time?
You'll have it how early? How early would you have a
The resolution is 6 to 6:25.
6 to 6:25? If we, now this is based on also if we change the meeting time. 6 to 6:25,
But then the meeting doesn't start till 7.
no, if that, we would change that if we don't change the meeting time, if the meeting doesn't start till 7, then we'd make it till 10 till 7. Just before the meeting, whenever the meeting starts, it'll be just before the meeting, we'll stop and take a look and make sure everybody's okay with the sign-up sheet.
Ms. Fletcher, I think the rules of our process, though, would mandate that we start at the advertised time, which would be 7.
And the public comments have to be a part of the meeting, not a separate section. So it has to fall, like it is tonight, within the, after approving the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'd recommend that we have a copy of the ordinance in the back so people can refresh themselves as they wish.
Madam Clerk, do you want that tonight or the next meeting?
Next meeting.
Can you make that happen?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, here we go. I have the sign-up list here. And the first speaker is Dolly Mitchell.
I'm Dolly Mitchell. We live at 132 Tarpon Drive. My husband and I have owned property here at Holden Beach for approximately 36 years. I debated contacting the commissioners, and I know under the new guidelines I cannot address anyone specifically. They have to be addressed as a group. But what I have to say, I wanted to be on the record, nothing misconstrued, which can happen when we talk to people individually. We began spending a great deal of time here and attending town meetings 12 years ago. 6 years ago, we downsized and moved here permanently. We delayed a trip to Florida to attend the February 16th meeting and were present for the entire meeting. Imagine my surprise 5 to 6 days later, while in Vero Beach, on our boat, I'm reading Lou's views to find the interpretation of the new regulations concerning comments at board meetings. I had sat in this room, heard the discussion, had left here thinking I had understood what was said at the meeting. I've even listened to the audio of the meeting, believe it or not, and it might behoove some of you to go back and listen to the audio of what's done at meetings, to be certain that none of the specifics were discussed that evening, and to verify my understanding of the resolution made that night. The details were not brought out at that meeting. I have no problem with public comments being restricted to time limits and decorum. I think that's good. I do have a problem when a board member asks for it to be held so that you can look at it. I think there are times that you need to look, and this has been an example of that. Probably the majority of us would not have known about this had it not been for Lou's views. I got the original agenda for the meeting, and there's nothing to indicate coming early at 6 o'clock. Since then, there was, I think, a email sent out to clarify that. It took approximately 10 to 12 minutes to get the agenda ready for the start of last month's meeting. Based on that evening, no one could have addressed items 5 and 28, since no one knew or understood what was even being introduced. If one came prepared to discuss items 11, 15, and 16, they were out of luck. Those items were deleted or postponed. All I'm asking is to think through the resolutions that are being made. It's been a concern of mine about a commissioner serving on the audit committee. And I've expressed those concerns previously. I have no problem with the decision to have an audit committee. I still express concern that a commissioner will now serve, and now that person has the authority to select the members, and then those members will be certified by the board. Remember, the word public, if my understanding is correct, was deleted in the proposal. What happened to the inclusive decision-making promise before elections? Is the trend to eliminate public boards? Thank you.
Our next speaker, Regina Martin.
Good evening. I live at 1032 Ocean Boulevard West, and I'm addressing item 14, which is our possible change to the meeting schedule. As has become the norm, the commissioners have once again put the cart before the horse, as my grandfather would say. The group of 4 commissioners approved a list of rules governing public comments without the mayor, Commissioner Kaiser, or the general public having an opportunity to review the resolution. Commissioner Fletcher read us the part he wanted us to hear and left out some very key points which did come out in Lou's views, like what time we would be meeting and when we needed to be here to sign up to speak. But since you can't have a public meeting, as Ms. Eisenhower said, prior to, can't have a comment period prior to a public meeting, you have to have it during the public meeting. So therefore, we've got to change our time, or else we've got to change the resolution that we just passed. So either we have to amend, yet again, another ordinance or regulation, or we've got to change our time of meeting in order to comply with the ordinance that we just passed. And I'm not sure that any thought was given to the fact of those of us that still work and how hard it is for us to get here sometimes, and how interested we are in the community, and we want to be here. So by moving the time, even 30 minutes, that can cause a problem if you're coming from Wilmington. And then the other thing about changing the time is that we're going to move from what we've been used to for a while, from the second Tuesday to the third Tuesday. And I'm suspecting that's probably due to the fact that we hired an attorney that has a prior commitment with the town of Carolina Beach for the second Tuesday of each month. Again, we as the citizens are being asked to accommodate the board, or without any thought, it seems, to our own personal needs. Many of us make our calendars months in advance. So to all of a sudden, we're going to change to another Tuesday, you know, maybe we can come, maybe we can't. I suspect that we're going to start seeing fewer and fewer people coming because fewer and fewer comments that we're making is anyone hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Pete Dallas.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Great.
My name's Pete Powis. I live at 236 Brunswick Avenue West. And I've been somewhat, I'm on the P&Z, I'm an alternate on P&Z, and I wanted to come up here and ask you guys to consider the spare parts for our sewer system. If we had a catastrophic event, it would be, we're 3 months out. And so when we were at the P&Z meeting the other night, I brought up that about go ahead and order these spare parts. I mean, it is a considerable cost. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of $700,000, but I mean, we're going to need the parts regardless. So would urge you guys to make that for, let's go ahead and get the parts, because if we had an event, we're 3 months out on some of the items, some of the control panels and that kind of thing. So I just hope that you guys could take that in consideration and find those monies and go ahead and get those parts on order. We're working, I know Mike and them, they got a presentation for you tonight about what's going on with the sewer system, but I would encourage you to go ahead and let's get the parts on order. So, it'd be catastrophic if we were to lose a control panel and have to wait 3 months for that to get it back up and running. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Tony Morowitz.
I really don't want to talk about an agenda item. Let me go ahead now.
Mm,
What about the agenda be at the end of the meeting?
yeah, you can talk at the next
Okay.
comment period. Karen Flashhout.
Mine's not an agenda item.
Okay. All right, so are we done with this process?
Yeah, for now.
Okay. All right, number 7, police report, Chief Wally Lane.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Chief.
Good to see everybody again. And my report, fortunately, gets to be brief again tonight. Break-ins have subsided. That's a good thing. And hopefully it will continue that way till next break-in season. That being said, we're over halfway through our in-service for 2016, and that's not too shabby either. Every officer is required 24 hours of in-service training a year, state mandate, and we're over halfway there. We've got 2 more days in April, and we should be done for the year, which is a good thing. The sooner we get it done, the better. Trying to get it done before the season kicks off, so we don't have to sweat it at the end. As most of you know, we have a couple of part-time administrative assistants at the police department currently. Thanks to the board that allowed us the opportunity to have those, which I think has been more than an asset. But anyway, one of those has been accepted to grad school in Maryland and will be leaving us on March the 16th. I am diligently in search of her replacement, and I hope to have that replacement in place before she leaves. Got somebody in mind, just need to work out the details. So just letting everybody know, Dory Mercer is headed off to grad school, and she's done an excellent job. She's been a super asset to the town and to our department, as most of the Mercers are. Her dad does the beach renourishment and that sort of thing. So the apple didn't fall far from the tree. And last but not least, our department is preparing for Criminal Justice Standards Commission. They call it an annual audit. I've been here 14 years this April, and this is the second annual audit we've had. So, anyway, we're preparing for that, and that will occur on March the 24th, and I think as the first one went well, I'm fairly confident that this one will go well also, but you'll definitely get a report on that at the next meeting. All that being said, be glad to answer any questions anyone has. Seeing one in the back.
Chief, could you explain the difference now in the keep checks from what's been? There's a note on here that says something's changed on the.
Nothing's really changed. Nothing's really changed. I mean, we're still doing the keep checks. That was just a paperwork thing. The keep checks are still occurring as they did. That's inner office stuff. That's,
Okay, so we
that's
still fill out the same.
absolutely, it's not gonna affect you at all.
Thank you.
Anything else from anywhere else? Hearing nothing.
Thanks, you.
Thank you very much, Chief. Road work, our engineer, Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mayor, Board. Good to be back this year. First time I've been down here this year so far, March. We prepared a set of bid documents, plans, and specifications to go out for the roadway work repairs as we identified in the conditions assessment done a couple months back. The dollar amount was such that it could be bid out informally, so we prepared plans and specifications, sent them out to 4 local paving contractors, got back 3 bids, which I think you probably have in your package, hopefully there. The 3 bids were received from, well, one from Southern Asphalt, one from Barnhill Contracting, and the other from Highland Paving. And all 3 numbers were pretty good, pretty tight, you know, for that amount of work. The lowest one was Southern Asphalt at $105,800. And in that bid, I don't know if y'all had the individual breakdown of the bid items, but we had one item that we broke down each street individually in case we wanted to not do one or do one in case the numbers came in a little higher than we thought. But Davis Street, Holden Street, By the Sea, Sunshine, and Elizabeth Street made up the repair work. And all of them came in, like I said, at the lowest one being 105 something, which was about where we targeted that to be at. So I think that the contractor, Southern Asphalt, we've had prior experience with and haven't had any problems with them on a work basis, and I think they would do a good job, and you know, for the amount of work, that seems like a pretty good deal.
Is it fair to assume these were sealed bids?
Sealed to us, but it was informal. We received them directly to us. It wasn't a sealed bid opening, like
Okay.
publicly, where you would have to do through a formal process, being informal. But they were all delivered to us, you know, on, you know, by 2 p.m. or 12
Okay.
p.m. last week. So
All right.
it wasn't I mean, it was all directly to us, and, you know, nothing was let out.
Okay.
anything like that.
We've had some discussion about Brunswick, not Brunswick, Brunswick Avenue, yes,
West.
west.
Yes.
And I understand that I've had some discussions with Mr. Hewitt and others that there may be another, that may be under a different solution. Is that why it didn't show up in the priorities here?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's right.
And High Point Street,
Yeah.
same issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, appears to be a utility-related
Yep, okay.
complication, not just a pure roadway maintenance type function.
And not knowing these businesses, are these local businesses?
Southern is out of New Hanover County. Highland is, they have a asphalt plant up around Leland somewhere. They're fairly new in town. I think their region is more around the sand hills, but they've moved down here and have opened up that asphalt plant. Barn Hill, I believe their plant might be around Rocky Point. I'm not sure if they're New Hanover or Pender, but they're all, you know, local to our region.
And do we have performance data on these companies so we know the quality of work and schedule and
I
cost?
wouldn't know that I would say data, but I
Well-
can certainly get some references from the low bidder if that's, you know, the.
Well, I'm not
the
necessarily
one.
requesting that. I'm just wondering, do we know anything about the type of work these people do, just that they're low bidders? Or?
We've worked with the two, Southern and Barn Hill. Barn Hill did a big repaving job we did in Magnolia Greens in Leland last year, $400-something thousand worth of paving work that went off about a hitch. Highland, I haven't had any experience with them. Haven't heard anything bad about them. Southern Asphalt's done several projects that we designed and, you know, didn't ever have any trouble with them.
Okay.
So our data is
Okay, that's what I
sufficient
was
for me,
asking.
you know, but yeah, that's.
Thank you.
And if we approve this, the work will be performed within 60 days, is that?
Yeah, that should be attainable. Give or take the weather, you know, this time of year, you know, can kind of go up and down. Definitely don't want it to be wet or cold. But I think, you know, I know the season is upon the island, you know, so you definitely want to get ahead of that.
Mr. Hewitt, are you ready for a consideration of a motion to approve a contract? Is everything in order?
Yes, sir.
In case the commissioners want to do anything?
Yes, sir. And are you in support?
Recommend approval by the board.
I move that we approve the contract
I second it.
with
Okay.
Southern Company for the rehabilitation of their streets.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Is this
Do you have
funded?
anything to add?
No. We'll proceed with getting them on board, lining up a schedule, get their paperwork all in line.
Is this funded within the current budget?
Yes.
Okay.
I apologize for laughing. I just thinking back prior to the election that it was discussed. There was that penny. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, we discussed it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Unanimous.
Yeah, it was a low,
Yeah. He said so.
Southern Asphalt.
Southern Asphalt a little bit.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All right, we ready to move on to number 9, right?
Correct.
Mr. Fletcher, you want to address the audit committee?
Yeah, I move that the board confirm the membership of the audit committee. We previously announced that 3 of the former members of the audit committee were willing to restand. That's Ron Skubik, Mark Fleschauer, and Ben Burnside, all highly qualified. I had been unable to get in contact with Chip Haig, which was the accountant that served before. Our town manager was successful in doing that, and I talked with Chip today. He has agreed to serve as well. So I would recommend that for this next year that we, that the board approve that these 4 are in fact the audit committee. Following, if you approve them, or for the ones that you do approve, I will ask the town clerk to schedule a planning meeting for them where they organize a lead member of that group of 4 that organizes the work with Mandy Lochner, the liaison from the town, and the town manager to do their work. And that one would be the one that would feed back to us the results of what they do. So I move that we approve these 4 as the audit committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Again, unanimous, Madam Clerk. Number 10, preliminary progress report. Mike Sullivan. Thank you for your work, sir. and the committee.
In the December meeting, the Board of Commissioners passed a motion to establish a sewer advisory committee. Because of the scheduling and the public meeting rules, we didn't get a chance to organize the committee until after P&Z met in January, which gave us a short period of time to do what the board asked us to do. We were supposed to make a presentation at the last meeting. We hadn't had enough time to do the preliminary work, so we're going to make the presentation tonight. For those who aren't aware of what the motion asked the committee to do, we were asked to determine what the system vulnerability was to flooding and storm surge, to determine what flood levels would impact the system, the types and potential failures in time and cost to repair the system, the availability of replacement parts, review other systems in similar communities to see how they protect their sewer system, and to present recommendations for the maintenance and the preservation of any damage to the system. The motion that the board drafted that established the committee was very narrow in scope and only asked us to look at damage that was caused by storm surge and flooding. Once we looked at the other questions and the system itself, it's clear that there are other things that can damage the system and do as much harm as storm surge, and that it's the opinion of the committee that the board should authorize us to address those issues as well as the storm surge issue. So a good period of time at our initial meeting was spent on that discussion. The rest of the time at the initial meeting was to board members and town members who were terrific in collaboration with the committee to try to get some information on the various items that we were asked to look at. So I'll just give you a quick synopsis of what we determined and what we looked at. Let's see. Flood levels and impact system. We were actually asked to provide estimates with respect to the level of flooding to which the system is vulnerable. We tried to get information that would be specific to Holden Beach because we're thinking the more specific, the more applicable it can be and the more value it is. But we couldn't find that. Tim Evans got in touch with a number of agencies and was really only to get the information where they established the base flood level, which doesn't really add a whole lot to the discussion. But David was able to provide a chart that showed all the hurricanes that came up the East Coast in the last 50 years. Again, not as specific as we would like, but at least it gives you the tendency and how often you have to be concerned of having flooding because of a hurricane. And Vicki Myers gave us one that was put out by NOAA, which showed you what a stage 1 hurricane would do, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, etc. And it tells you how many feet of water you could be under, depending on which stage hurricane would hit the coast. Again, I look at it, it's a little tough to discern exactly what it's trying to say, but you can see that at certain points with a Category 4 hurricane, we could have 28 feet of standing water. That's kind of scary. Luckily, if you look at the frequency, there's only been 1 or 2 Category 4 hurricanes that have come up the East Coast in the last 50 years. The vast majority are Category 1, Category 2. But even at that level, you could have 10 feet of standing water, Category 1, and you could have 16 feet of standing water, Category 2. So, again, not as specific as we would like, but generally cause for concern. The next thing was the potential failures, time and cost to repair. As Pete said earlier, we had an estimate from the Public Works that the cost to replace all of the equipment in the 4 pump stations, if we would have a major flood, storm surge, would be $700,000. And that some of those parts, mainly the sewage pumps, would take 3 months to be replaced. Not because they couldn't do the work, but because they have to make the pumps specifically for the particular stations. So you have very costly and a long time lapse, which would cause havoc on the island. Next thing we looked at was the availability of replacement parts. And when that topic was brought up initially by the board, the mayor pointed out that he was familiar with or had heard of part sharing type of activities so that we wouldn't have to store $700,000 worth of parts and we wouldn't have to worry about that. Two problems that I came across while we did the research is I'm not aware of any place that has this type of system that currently has a part sharing system, unlike nuclear energy and things like that. And secondly, that when our system was built, even within the system itself, pump station 1 may not have parts that are compatible with pump station 2 or pump station 3 or pump station 4. They all have unique components to it that require specific pumps. So it would be hard to be able to get a pump that would fit into our system if our system isn't compatible itself. So that's the other part. To review other similar systems in coastal and communities, we looked and Oak Island has the same system and Sunset Beach has the same system. And what those communities did was, I guess I should go back to the beginning. People aren't aware of the way the system is. We have retention tanks that are underground. Those communities, the retention tanks are still underground. And with us, in addition to the retention tanks being underground, we have electrical components, we have the pumps underground. Those communities took the parts that are susceptible to flooding, and they put them above the base flood level. So we've, on the next issue, we'll get to that, but, so their systems are different than ours. They've protected themselves more than we have, because the parts that can be damaged by water are above the base flood level. Now, for us, in addition to the fact that we have electrical components that are susceptible to flooding, the retention tanks are underground, and I'm told that when they were put in, they were supposed to last a lifetime. But there's already signs of some corrosion to these tanks, and the tanks are covered by a concrete slab. There's absolutely no way to get a tank out of where they are now, or to put another tank into where they are now. So we're fortunate enough to have one of the committee members as an engineer, and he's put in a tremendous amount of work. And his suggestion at this point is that we put the susceptible parts above flood level. And what we have, obviously, we're going to build something, a house, a structure. The bottom of the structure is really going to be, as the houses are here, it's going to be open. But in order to do that, you can't have pilings in there because you have to get underneath. And at some point, you're going to have to get underneath to get these tanks out. So you're going to have to build the house so the structure in the bottom is just a frame, and be able to lift the tank out from where it currently is. So instead of putting pilings in, we need to put in cement foundations and footings, have them come out so they can support the weight of pulling this tank out. We've asked, we understand that there was money allocated for technical consulting for this prior to the establishment of the committee, and we've asked the town to allocate that money. We were waiting for Leo Green as the engineer, and he was going to contact somebody. I don't know if they've contacted David and put in a proposal as of yet or not.
He has, I just got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're in, what we're doing is Leo drew up the plans that, and we're going to have an independent engineer look at those and give us a cost of what it would cost to build these structures and move the equipment that's susceptible to flooding to above the base flood level. And at this point, that's as far as we've got.
Mike, when you looked at buying replacements, did you think about the fact of just standardizing at the same time? Just getting all the same thing? Because if you have to replace them, you end up putting all the same thing in?
We didn't, because I have no idea what that would, if we want to spend that kind of money.
Well, if you're gonna buy 16 pumps,
But I guess.
and right now the pumps are different.
The pumps are different, but the the pumps themselves, they have to be attached, and we can let Chris explain, you know, the ins and the outs of that, but I was under the impression that you'd have to almost change the whole, it's not just the pumps, it's not saying nice the pumps, it's what the pumps are attached to. So you have to
The
go
base,
redo the
the base.
system itself.
Okay, yeah. Chris?
Basically, due to head pressure and things of that nature, you can't take one from one and put them on two due to the horsepower with head pressure is involved. As far as control panels, from one station to the other, two of the stations are interchanged and then two won't. So yeah, there's really no way that you can standardize it across the board, just one pile of equipment, one size fits all, that I know of.
While we're raising everything up, and moving all the electrical equipment up into this structure, will that affect our ability to use the sewer system?
Just to make sure what the plan is, if we had a new equipment, have it up top, be connecting, doing all that by the bottom equipment, working with it. And once it's all hooked up, switch, flip the switch.
It takes some careful planning, but it can be done.
Yeah. I have a question about the cost analysis. It just says for raising pump stations 2, 3, and 4. So I'm looking at it from a risk perspective, and granted, the tanks, we've seen them, they're underground, and some of them are showing some prior to end of service life degradation, I'll say. But from a risk perspective, the electrical components are those that are the highest risk due to flooding. Is that what the committee looked at?
Well, clearly they are, but so are the vacuum pumps, because the vacuum pumps, the sewage
Right.
pumps, excuse me, the sewage pumps can work even underwater for a
Right.
period of time, so you're not concerned, but
So,
the vacuum pumps and the electrical components both, yes.
so is that what we're asking a cost analysis be done for, is just to raise the vacuum pumps and the electrical connections? Because this says the pump stations themselves.
That's what would be raised above the flood level, but you have to build a structure to do that, and you have to have a structure. You have to have a
Understand.
structure that people can get into to work at. So, you know, there's gonna be building problems. It's not just building like a shed and throwing it up 10 feet in the air and saying we can put our stuff in there. You're gonna have to meet building codes and OSHA codes and other things as well.
And Mike, you said pump station number 1 is not an issue?
Well, pump station, at the current flood range, it would be about 2 feet below it, but when you have the preliminary that we just got with the, that haven't been approved yet, but under approval, it's above the flood level. By itself, as it currently is.
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
Well, it's not only just, the vulnerability of the flood, yeah, there's a possibility of that, but the issue he's talking about that collection tank, without a doubt, that's gonna happen one day, and there ain't no way of working around it, and when you prepare for a flood, you need to fix that situation too, where we shoot ourselves in the foot, building some type of structure over something and making the problem worse than it is now, because that collection tank is gonna have to come out of there. And even if you got an access point big enough to fill it right straight out and everything's plug and play, that ain't gonna be a 30-minute thing. And you got a very short period of time to do it, because that system will not operate without that tank. So that's the reason it come in about the tank. So the deal with one being up there, even though it's below, it's high and dry, and it's not gonna be, that we're not gonna be taken out by flood, we still got to address that situation of being able to get that tank out of the ground there, so that one needs to be included.
Can I make a suggestion that I think that their scope should be expanded to some degree to possibly include things like lightning strikes, getting that tank out of the ground, putting in an alternate power supply if one's necessary, looking at plausible scenarios and figuring out what plausible scenarios there are and which ones are just beyond our ability to plan for, and then seeing what the cost would be to fix those things and come up with a plan to fix them.
I'd look at also APUs. We've got, what, 2? You have 2 auxiliary power units,
Yes.
Yeah,
and you got 4 sites.
yeah.
So if we lost power from off the island, forget a lightning strike, we just don't have power.
That's right.
We don't have any power, so we could use, I mean, to me, immediately when you said you had 2, and I said, but we got 4 stations.
Back on that collection tank, again, the life expectancy on one of those tanks under good circumstances is 35 years. Could be a little longer, it could be a little, could be a little less, but we actually, when we do our maintenance yearly, you know, we keep monitoring. I ain't saying that the tank's gonna blow out tomorrow, but I do see signs of wear. And it's just something we wanted to bring to light while we're looking at it. Because to me, when you say vulnerability of flood, you know, that's anything that had the potential to put us in a crisis, and that's the reason that came about, and we put that in there. But that being said, that's about all I got to speak on the collection tank.
So what's the next step? I see that we're allocating funds for the engineer to do a cost analysis. Is
Well,
that-
now, the funds have already been appropriated in the current budget.
Right.
And where the sewer advisory committee would be in the process of spending the allocation. So there's no new money being
Yeah, okay.
introduced on the table.
My question is, though, do we want to start designing something when we don't know yet what we're designing for?
Right.
That, to me, is why we should figure out what we're designing for. Once we figured out what we're designing for, then you spend the money to make the design to
Yep.
withstand that.
But I would agree, Ken, with your recommendation that we approve the expansion to include all risk that you might think come about with regard to the sewer system, and not limit yourself. I mean, if you come up with a new one in the process, it's your scope.
Well, that's why I was talking earlier about, you know, risk perspective and probability of occurrence. And I think that's what I'm hearing from Mr. Kaiser too, is that, you know, at some point we got to prioritize what's the biggest risk and what's the shortest time we have to deal with that risk. And I would hope that that would end up being on the top of the list. And certainly plan ahead for, you know, having to replace the tanks at some point, that makes sense. But that's why I asked about the pump stations in total, because I can't see raising the tanks now, nor do I hear that it's being proposed.
We're not gonna raise it.
Right, we're just gonna design something that will afford us the opportunity to do it when we have to. Okay. So what's our
The
next?
only reason to raise the tanks would be to replace them, then they'd be put back down,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
the new one.
Yep. So what action do we need to
I
take?
think, one, we need to, you want to make the motion that we expand the scope?
I'll make a motion to
All
expand the
risk.
scope to include other high vulnerability items, and then make a plan to be able to cope with those.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second?
Okay, any more discussion?
I would like there to be some discussion about prioritizing those.
Right.
I'm hearing that in the motion.
Right, prioritizing too.
Okay, any more discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. It's unanimous, Madam Clerk. Thank you very much for your service and your committee as well. Number 12, discussion of possible action on ordinance 16-07. Who is addressing that?
I could if you would like me.
I'd like somebody to.
Okay, this was just put back on the agenda at one of the previous meetings. The board made a motion to remove some verbiage from an ordinance, but we just have to approve it in ordinance form. So this is just confirming a motion that was already made. The board would like to choose to do that.
So this is housekeeping.
Yes, sir.
Does everybody understand the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's unanimous again, Madam Clerk. Who made that motion? My mind?
Yeah, it may have been. I'll so move.
Thank you. Who seconded it? I seconded it. I thought I heard that. When you get old, that happens. All right, 13, discussion of possible action on multi-jurisdictional disaster debris management. Mr. Clemens? Hope we don't ever have to deal with it again.
Yes.
That's the best plan.
I guess I'll go right out of one storm and into another. Good thing is the rain seems to be going, and we might make a record this week and have a week with sunshine. But, what this is actually a request for the board to consider joining with the county and piggybacking with the solicitation of proposals for storm debris cleanup, which is a necessity now. With FEMA requirements like they are, that you've got to have it's not like it used to be back in the day when you could just get anybody that had a tractor and a dump truck and just put them to work and keep up with their time. You've got to have all your parts and pieces in order to be able to get reimbursement out of them, or you may not get a thing of it and get stuck with the bill of cleaning your own stuff up. I actually feel like it'd be a good way to go. It really, I can't think of any reason that it would be any different having our own standalone contract, because you'd actually be just like you were the primary contract holder. You could enact the contract at any time without the county declaring an emergency. And it's actually not finalized, and it's just giving us permission to just proceed with the solicitation through the county. We actually have to let them know ahead of time to be able to make that happen, and just love for you to consider doing that. If there's any questions that I can answer, I'll be glad to answer them.
If I may, you want to give a background about having an agreement with the prior company that went belly up and all that?
I do got one more thing that I forgot. Our last contractor, their contract expired, they're no longer in business, and the last solicitation we sent out, we got 0 response.
I think you just addressed what I was asking you to address. All right. So the bottom line is, there's no other option other than this, is that?
There's no other option, and even if we don't like what we get back from them, we still don't have to, we're still not fully obligated to fulfill. We're just actually asking them to join on. If we don't want to, we can back out at any time, the way I understand. Is that correct, David?
Yes.
But we need to have a plan.
We need to have a plan, and if we don't like what their plan is, we can always solicit again, and we may get a response. But I will say, ever since Hurricane Katrina, like I said, it's pretty difficult dealing with all the changing requirements with FEMA, because I really think they like an excuse not to be able to reimburse you, and I don't want to be the test dummy and give them somebody to make an example out of.
Okay, so we need,
Would it be fair to assume then that since we're entering into a multi-jurisdictional process, that that should be the most economical, rather than us just going out and soliciting individual bids?
Yeah, and actually, I think the reason FEMA likes for you to have that in place is because it gives your contractor a locked-in price per ton. You're not really getting, if you don't have I don't even know if you could get reimbursement now if you didn't have one in place. It's a requirement to have it, because
Okay.
I feel like everybody, when you don't have somebody, you know how it is when somebody feels like they charge anything they want to. It's about like
They
having
charge
all
anything they
the
want to. That's right.
Yep.
So is the county taking a lead in this at all, or?
Yeah, actually, the county's actually
That's
leading
theirs.
this. It would be joining them on their contract. They're actually sending out the request for the proposals, but they have to know ahead of time how many
If you
people
wanna
want to join them.
participate.
I think Ocean Isles joined them, and I think we will if y'all go ahead with it. And I don't know how many others, but like I said, I think they have to know by the 18th, I believe is the date I signed.
Yes.
I make a motion that we join the multi-jurisdictional debris disaster management and monitoring request proposal.
is there a second?
Second?
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Thank you, that makes me
Unanimous
sleep
again.
better.
And
I know this is working on it.
And what we anticipate is a successful solicitation, and there'll be a contract, an appropriate contract, hopefully in the late May, early June timeframe, that'll come back to the board for final approval.
When that comes, then we would be asked to approve our proportional amount for that?
It's a contingent fee based. You will enter into a contract based on set reimbursement rates established by FEMA.
Okay.
That's
Got
the
it.
way it works.
Thanks.
Mr. Clemens, on behalf of the board and the citizens of the town and property owners, I'd like to thank you for all the good work that you and your department do. We get a lot of compliments on how hard you work and a good job. Just passing
Well
that
done.
along to you.
Amen.
Ms. Eisenhower, are you going to talk with us about meeting schedule?
Yes. I've requested that we consider moving the meeting to every third Tuesday of each month instead of the second Tuesday, so that our town attorney can meet with us. Ms. Martin was correct. She has another commitment to another town that she serves on the second Tuesday. I realize that at this point of the year, it's difficult for some people to change their schedule, so if there's any discussion about that date, I'd ask that we have that now. The time was moved to 6:30 instead of 7, hopefully to help us get home at a decent hour. But if it is difficult for people to get here, I'd like to hear comments about that as well. I think it would be extremely valuable to have Ms. Fox here with us. She has already helped tremendously and worked with David and Heather, has looked over everything and has some amazing ideas for us, and I think would help kind of control some of the cart before the horse issues. She is extremely valuable to us, and I would like for her to be here. The dates work for me, but I'd like to hear from everybody else if there's any other discussion about changing those times.
Just a point of clarification, if we change the start time to 6:30, does that mean the public sign-up period would have to move to 6 o'clock?
The resolution that was passed actually said 6:30 as the meeting time, and it did 6 to 6:25. So this actually would bring you into compliance with that.
Okay.
Ken, you have a problem with that?
I cannot make the June 21st meeting. I have something scheduled, and for a couple of the other ones, I have late in the day things on my schedule already, and I'm not sure I can be here by 6:30. And I'm going to try to
6:30?
change them, but I just don't know if I can.
Does the audience have a choice?
Sorry, discussion's limited up here unless the commissioners agree to give it back to the audience. So, sorry.
Well, since we've got those present here, I'm fine with hearing what the opinions are, but that's just, I'm speaking as one member.
It's fine with me.
You okay? I'm okay.
All right, discussion's open to the audience. Anybody want, if you will come speak, so we can record you. Have to have you on record up here in this microphone, please. Give us your name and have at it.
I'm Betty Curtis. I live 1104 Ocean Boulevard West. And no, I could not come at this 6:30. I think most people will not approve of 6:30 meeting because you have your family to take care of and dinner, and 6:30 is too early to start. 7 o'clock is plenty early enough. And I think most people will agree.
Anyone else want to speak to this issue? Yes, ma'am.
Carol Ann Lohman, I live at 118 Marsh Walk. The 20th of December just isn't a good day for any of us, is it, to read? Think about it. That's Christmas week. Think about it, ladies.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? Ms. Atkins?
I'm Gay Atkins, and I think when you all, because you didn't advertise for an attorney, you picked an attorney, when you picked them, did you put any thought into what we might want or what we have been doing, and the time, the day, and the time on changes? 7 o'clock, I agree with people because we all have things we're doing up to 7 o'clock. I'm sorry that somebody's inconvenienced.
Anyone else want to speak? All right, back to the commissioners.
Would 7 o'clock help you?
It would be better, but still, the June 21st one, I just can't be there at all for that one, no matter what time you hold it.
I'm okay with either time, 6:30 or 7. I'd actually prefer that we stick at the 7 if we can, even if we have to change our guidelines in order to keep things sort of stable. A lot of people have been used to the 7 o'clock for a long time. It would just be, I do agree that we need the attorney there, and she's valuable. We have a lot of things coming that will require an attorney, rather than trying to discuss it and then go do it later the next month. We've got some big issues coming down that it would be good to have the attorney in the room.
I'm ready to make a motion, Mr. Mayor. I move we adopt this, the dates of these meetings, but change the start time to 7 p.m.
I second that.
Do we need to include as a part of that the sign-up times? The change to that?
To make
I
that,
would actually prefer if you guys will let me bring another resolution back to
Okay.
correcting it at the next meeting, and if you don't mind, we could just be lenient at the
Can do
next
that.
meeting.
Before we vote, I just have one question. Alan, you had mentioned previously that you set your schedule up at the very beginning of the year, and you have many board meetings that you preside over or go to, and you may not be able to change your schedule. Are you going to be able to accommodate this? Are we going to be able to
I was
have the
trying to
mayor
keep my
here?
mouth shut. I've already said what I felt about it. I'll just try to be here. If I can, I will. If I can't, I won't.
Okay.
I think the date should go back to the third Tuesday.
so we're in the middle of the motion.
Are you ready to vote? All right, this is commissioners only now. I'm sorry. You ready to vote, or you got more discussion?
Me?
You guys come in and you think,
We're ready to vote.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
Okay, it's 3-1, Madam Clerk. Okay. We are town manager's report, is that right?
Yes, sir. Wanted to bring you up to speed on the boating infrastructure grant status. I don't know if you had occasion to witness the dredge on site last week before last. That dredging is complete. The construction on the access pier has moved along as scheduled, and where we are right now is awaiting the floating dock assemblies. That project's moving along well. Christie insisted that I mentioned that we had over 1,000 participants in the Search 5K race here this weekend. There was I thought Easter had come early. There's a lot of people. What's probably just as important is that over 500 of those were children. So we're certainly living up to our moniker of the family beach and drawing, and those were local school kids. I do want to point out that in case anybody is sending emails to the staff this weekend, although they never work on the weekend, they'll probably not be reachable because we're finalizing our cloud server migration. In your the commissioner's note, I say that the migration has been completed, the testing has been completed, and we'll actually be flipping the switch this weekend, and will be full on back up on Monday. So if anybody is sending emails to the staff, they probably won't be able to be reached this weekend. Chris has got the odor controls in place on at Jordan Boulevard. It's been hardwired, and it is working. So we'll have, it's just in time for the Easter crowd to come in, and we'll give it a hard test then. Valve pit replacements. I know some of you may have seen the crews out working, taking old valve pits up where they've had a defect in the bottom of them. We're starting to see some of the short cans now are revealing the same type of defect that the tall cans are. We're working with the manufacturer, who's been fairly accommodating on providing the no-cost replacements for those defects. Too bad we can't get some crews in here to help out with the replacements. We'll continue to work that with the manufacturers. A note on the ad valorem tax collection rate. Just to let everyone know, collections are coming in well. We're ahead of where we were at this time last year. Compared to budget to date, we're about almost at 98%. That's just under $40,000 and is well ahead of where we were last year. If you are one of the folks that haven't paid your taxes, Margaret will have a second notice out for you this coming week, or this week. They'll go out this week. Want to provide an update from the Corps of Engineers on projects funding and the dredge schedule. In case you haven't seen the east end of down near Ocean Boulevard East or McRae Street, I think that bears witness to the fact that there hasn't been any maintenance done in the Lockwood Folly Inlet crossing this year, nor was there any done last year. Last time that the Corps put sand on the beach via a pipeline dredge was when the town participated with them in the piggyback project 3 seasons ago. That's not to say that there's not money available coming down through the federal pipeline. There is about $5.5 million worth of appropriations money in the Atlantic Intercoastal Waterways budget, but that's for all 330 miles of of the waterway in North Carolina. The piece that's been carved out for the shallow draft inlets is about $3 million, which is supposed to be rolled into a singular contract that'll be performed in November 16th, the November that's coming up, wintertime, November 16, 17 timeframe. That usually puts anywhere for Lockwood Folly Inlet here local, usually puts anywhere from 100 to 180,000 yards of sand on the east end of Holden Beach. So don't hold me to that. It has been a while since that operation has taken place. Those are just historical yields. We have been working with the Corps and also the state for about 3 years now to obtain local permits for when the federal money does finally dry up, and it's pretty much going away. It's gone. And that is to procure local permits so that work can be done locally, executed through the Memorandum of Understanding between the state and the Corps. We've received the batched biological opinion from U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and that is a key document that is necessary for the Corps to be able to issue a federal permit here locally. So we've got that, and I am anticipating a permit issuance in the June-July timeframe on the shallow draft inlets 5 permits, and that is a permit that will allow local governments in North Carolina to actually do shallow draft inlet maintenance with nearshore and beach placement of compatible material with help from the state, of course. There's about speaking of help from the state, looks like there's about $3.5 million of state funding currently available for award via the state federal memorandum of understanding to provide the shallow draft inlet navigation maintenance. And that money is primarily comes from boater registration, transfer of titles, that kind of thing. So that money is there. It's been yielding to date, the last 4 quarters, somewhere in the neighborhood of close to $20 million. And I do know that the legislative contingent is making efforts to develop other vehicles similar to the shallow draft inlet fund, specifically dedicated for beach nourishment. Since the federal money is going away, North Carolina is going to have to develop the capability to put sand on the beach by itself. Okay. North Carolina is going to have to develop the capability to put sand on the beach. Good news, the FEMA project extension that goes back to Project 559, we've got a verbal approval on that project. We're waiting hard copy confirmation. For those of you that may recall, it's in the 600 block area and is worth about $450,000. And hopefully we can roll that into a portion of the Central Reach project, which is to be discussed at a special meeting on Friday at 10 o'clock. We're going to have the financial consultants here along with our engineering, beach engineer, so we can get that project underway. Last but not least, please be advised that there is a new polling place at the Emergency Operations Center for the 15 March primary. The address is 1044 Sabbath Home Road. We haven't done that here before. Heather is going to chaperone some of the details tomorrow, but we're pleased that we're able to have that event based on some of the previous shortcomings with the polling place. I think it's going to work out well for them. But I believe that's it for me.
Sure would be nice to go vote and not have to wear hip boots. Those of you that love the little martins, you know, the mosquito-eating birds that fly around and chirp in the mornings, they're back. So if you haven't put your martin box or your gourds up, remember the first week of March is the day you should put them up. I saw the first ones about 3 days ago, and anyway, if you don't get them up in time, they'll already rent somewhere else, and you won't get them back. Sales continue to improve. I was at a meeting yesterday, and an economist was speaking and said that this year, through the summer and early fall, should be the best sales time that we've had in several years. He had the documents and documentation to prove it, and I agree with what he's saying. So that's some good news. And also, talking with the building inspector, we've got the most construction going that we've had going in many years, and more coming down the pipe. So I don't know how many total we'll have under construction or built this year, but my memory was the best year we've ever had is 55. Is that right or wrong? Does anybody know?
That's gotta be one of your better years. We're gonna get close to that this year.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would say we're gonna have over 40 and somewhere 40 to 55 right in there. But it's a good year. So we need some good news after the last several years. And to follow up on the town manager's comment about Friday morning in this room at 10 o'clock, if you're interested in beach nourishment, please be here and educate yourself and educate us. We need all the help we can get in making a major decision, but the time is nigh. A decision has to be made. Permits and all-time deadlines are upon us. So come join us, listen, and learn. And with that, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, you stole my thunder anyway, but so I'll echo the thing about the meeting Friday. you know, from my reading and from what I've heard from others, the Central Reach project is one that has more obvious benefit. And certainly, I will be looking forward to the discussion, and I'm already predispositioned to be in favor of that because it just makes sense. And when you walk down the beach and you see the erosion, it's certainly real, and we need to manage it. Also, however, you know, we have precious resources here that we need to prioritize, as we said earlier, for high-risk things that could impact the beach community, separate from nourishing. And so I'm thankful for the P&Z committee's report. I look forward to hearing about the cost estimates and the prioritization of those, because those are important. We want to do it right, but we also want to do it in a timely manner, so heaven forbid we don't end up with a storm that is going to separate one part of the community from the other. And I thank everyone for their comments tonight and for coming. That's why we hold the meetings. Thank you.
The only thing I'd really like to.
Well, hold a minute. I think I'm out of order. I think it's you, darling. It's my fault. We got somebody that's missing, so that puts it back over here.
Sorry, John. I do want to thank anybody who was involved in putting on the race this past weekend. That was an amazing event, and there were so many pictures on Facebook of all of those kids having such a good time. That's the face of Holden Beach. They really had a phenomenal time, and we were at Science Olympiad all day, so we didn't get to go to it, but we definitely want to be there at the next race that's held. Thank you for doing that. The other thing is, I just wanted to say thank you to those of you who have been calling and sending emails. It's nice to hear from you, even outside of this meeting. I appreciate the time that you take to call. And, you know, sometimes I might be working and have to call you back, but I do appreciate those of you who have taken the time to reach out to me personally that way. All right, John.
I second that in appreciation for not only the emails, the letters, I should get letters, and the calls. The more we know about your position on things, the better we can respond to the islands. But going forward, we've got this meeting on Friday, which is, we're talking $15 to $20 million of expenditures for the Central Reach project. We will very soon thereafter follow with budgeting for the next year, a big issue. We'll have public meetings for that, and I ask that you try your best to be there, participate, listen, learn about what's happening with the budget, where the money's going, where it's coming from. We'll have also an audit committee watching the process for us this year, but your being there is a big issue. If you don't know about it, you don't come to the meetings, then I kind of personally feel you don't have a lot of complaints later on if you didn't know what happened. So try to make those meetings. And when we get around to the next big one, the terminal growing, you'll have the same thing. Make all you can, learn all you can about the issues and feed it back to us. Let us know your position so we can respond to the town. Right?
Mr. Cobb.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. It's nice to see a large crowd. I also want to say the same thing as several of the others have said. The meeting on Friday is very important. We're talking about an extremely large financial project that we're getting ready to undertake. And it'd be really nice to have a lot of people here to hear about it, hear what our options are, and give us feedback on what they think we should be doing. Remember, early voting is taking place right now, and the election is going to be on the 15th. I'd encourage everybody to vote for the person you feel is the best for the job, whoever that may be. And I guess I want to thank Christy for the race on over the weekend. That was an awful lot of people to have to deal with and keep them from getting lost and find them when they did. So it was a very good job. Very good job. And that's it.
All right. Commissioners are finished, so it's time for the public comments on general items. And I think we had two people. Pardon me?
Yeah, two that were.
Okay, Mr. Marowitz.
I'm Tony Marowitz. I live at 118 Frigate. I've been on the beach about 20 years. In that time, I've probably attended 100 or so of these meetings. In that time, I've seen a lot of public comments. Some of them were kind of frivolous. Some of them got pretty heated. Some of them were very redundant, but nobody got hurt. I've spoken about maybe 50 times, but probably less than a third of those times that I know I was going to say something when I came to the meeting. Something happened at the meeting that I thought was worthwhile me standing up and talking. Most of you campaign on a platform of open information and transparency, and yet you passed a rule that is limiting public comments. I don't think you should inhibit the flow of information from the public to you. And I think you are doing so by writing or having a requirement for pre-signups. If you don't have that rule, there's no question in my mind you're going to hear something you don't like. But don't you think you need to know what the public is thinking, even if you don't agree with it? If you're not trying to limit public comment, then what are you trying to do with this pre-sign-up agreement? I find it really unconscionable and very alarming that you're limiting the information that flows from the public to you. And I strongly urge that you remove the requirement for pre-sign-ups for public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fleischhauer.
Karen Fleischhauer, 125 Lions Club. 5 years ago, this past winter, my husband Mark took our small dog out in front of our house one night to do her duty before going to bed. If I can't get through this, I'll have somebody else read it. From nowhere came our neighbor's 2 mixed breed dogs. Mark was able to scoop up our dog and raise her over his head. Unable to leap high enough to get at the small dog, the 2 attacking dogs began snapping at Mark's legs. His jeans were torn in the process in several places, and there were bite marks on his legs. A police report was filed with the Holden Beach Police, and Mark was seen at an urgent care facility where the physician cleaned his wounds and gave him a tetanus shot. The bites weren't severe enough to warrant sutures. The neighbor apologized, and we urged them at that time to get rid of the animals and left it at that. This past November 11th was an unseasonably warm day, and Mark waited until low tide to go for a barefoot jog on the beach. He was walking down our street in flip-flops and shorts when one of the 2 dogs that had attacked him previously broke loose from the owner's grip and attacked Mark, scratching and biting Mark in several places. When I arrived at the scene minutes after the attack, Mark was on the ground with a towel around his leg, and there was a trail of blood across the street. The Holden Beach Police arrived on the scene, and an ambulance had been called. One of the wounds was so severe, it was determined Mark needed to go to New Hanover Regional Medical Center, where they had a trauma center in the event emergency reconstructive surgery may be required. Although the most severe wound required 29 stitches, he fortunately did not require surgery. He is still undergoing treatment with a plastic surgeon. Under the administration of Officer Milligan of the Holden Beach Police Force, a formal review hearing under North Carolina General Statute 67, Article 1A, was held on November 18th, whereby a 3-person independent panel unanimously concurred that the dog was indeed a dangerous dog under the terms of that statute. Although Brunswick County has additional, more restrictive conditions under which a dangerous dog must be retained by its owner, Holden Beach could only apply the conditions of the state statute. The owners have retained the dangerous dog in their home since this hearing. The only stipulation is that the dog must be muzzled and on a leash when outside the home. The dog is free to roam when inside the house. Despite a general recognition of a need for more restrictive laws, the election of a new board, delay in hiring the new town attorney, and a rewrite of the initial proposed ordinance delayed adoption of the new dangerous dog ordinance until the February meeting. We have now learned that the town, under the advice of the attorney, has decided not to take action on this designated dangerous dog on our street. Mark has been in contact with Officer Milligan over the past few months and was disappointed to learn that no one in the town or police staff had consulted with Officer Milligan in recent weeks. My question to the board are these. Does a third time a charm rule applies here? Is it 3 strikes or bites and you're out? If the dog had attacked a 5-year-old instead of a tall 65-year-old male, would I be standing here tonight? Is the town prepared for the liability should this dog escape and severely attack someone again? Every time I leave my home, I must drive or walk past the dog owner's home. I am constantly reminded of that day in November. How do I assure our 3 children, their spouses, and our 9 grandchildren that it's safe to visit, play in the yard, ride bikes up the street, and walk to the beach? Others on our street share the same concerns. This is not my idea of a family beach.
All right. That's all that signed up for the comments. Is there a motion we adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We adjourn.